Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So welcome again to this Bhakti Sangha Japa newsletter interview for the month of April, and we are so happy, and we are really very fortunate to welcome our very pure devotees of this Bhakti Sangha who always are there in all the classes of all the Bhagavatam classes of which is conducted by Bhakti Sangha by various speakers. And our today's guest, more than guest, they are really, we are very fortunate to have their association. So it's her grace, Lalita Mataji, and his grace, Dinabandhu Prabhuji. And I would like to say that they are, Mataji is disciple of our dear Srila Prabhupada, and Prabhuji is disciple of His Holiness Jayapataka Swami Maharaj. And it's like a grandfather's disciple and father's disciple are sitting together. So, and thank you so much, Mataji and Prabhuji, for giving your valuable time and association and taking your time for us to give us this interview, Mataji. Welcome to the call, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, dear.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So, Mataji, how do you think is Bhakti Sangha and Bhakti Sangha in Krishna consciousness?
The Bhakti Sangha group has basically redirected my life. When we were in California for 27 years, I decided I needed to have more spiritual association and not be with non-devotees at work, and started to look for a place to move. And somehow or other, by Krishna's grace, we're here. And the first thing that happened was the Jagat Purush, the secretary GBC, asked me to be the treasurer, and Shamagori's husband was the treasurer. So basically, I was to be handed over everything from him, and that's how I got his association and the direction to join into the Bhakti Sangha group. And it took many months before I could. We were in the middle of moving, and we've moved twice. So it's been kind of a very difficult period in that sense. So many things to deal with. But still, we decided to stay with the Bhagavatam class each and every day. And then eventually we were able to start with the job, or at least I have. And so it's been a revolution in my consciousness. You call those pure devotees, but we're aspiring to become pure devotees by your association. Because when I'm on the call and I'm listening to all these classes, and I see that they've studied every word of Srila Prabhupada, whether it's the Bhagavatam or the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Bhagavad Gita, or even the Lilamrita, everything has been embraced with love. And so that association is invaluable to my life.
Very well. Thank you so much, Mataji. So, and Mataji, how was your journey in how your journey in Krishna conscious started, and in between how you faced Krishna conscious to be, and now how you feel about it, and how you got association of Prabhuji during your journey in Krishna consciousness?
I basically was, as a young girl, I was always looking through all the different books in our house, looking for something about God. My mother always said I was going through the Britannica and anything, trying to find something about God. And I was in the church, and I sang in the church. And I always tell people that when it was Christmas time, it was very exciting. It was the only time that seemed there was spiritual energy, even with my father. And I always wondered when we sang "O Holy Night," when it said, "Let all within us praise His holy name." You know, what did that mean? Because it had such an emotional and spiritual energy to that request. And let all within us praise His holy name. So at one point, one of the early devotees, Ishan and his wife, Bhavati, the Bhavati, they were interviewed on a show in Canada where I'm from, called the Pierre Burton Show. And my mother and I watched it together. And I was only, I guess, 10 years old. And It was a very, obviously, the second you're in contact with devotees and Srila Prabhupada's movement, your heart is altered. And at one point later on, I was 19 and in the work world. I was introduced by Krishna's arrangement to a Harinam Sankirtan in Montreal. And when I basically was preached to by one of the devotees after that Harinam that I sort of just joined into, I felt a lot of fear. I sort of had an inkling of what it meant to surrender. And I had fear about that, which reminds me about Jai Pratap Maharaj, because my understanding is when he saw a devotee with tilak, he went running. So sometimes you know what it means. You know what surrender means, although I haven't surrendered yet. However, it's a powerful thing coming into a spiritual movement. And I basically then joined in Montreal at the age of 19 in February. And I think I joined on His Holiness Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's, I think it's his appearance day in February. Anyway, it was very powerful to come in contact with Prabhupada's original. It was at the bowling alley. The temple in Montreal at that point was a bowling alley. And it was 1974. So things were very different in 1974 than when the devotees like Jamuna and Shamasundar were introduced to Krishna consciousness one-on-one with Srila Prabhupada in 1965, 66. At this point, all the temples were being encouraged to get buildings so that they could have a place for Krishna Katha, to introduce people to Krishna. And it meant that most of us then engaged in not really just book distribution, but collecting to help fund all these temple acquisitions. And so that was basically where I was at that point. And eventually in Montreal, we got a bigger temple, and that they have through today. There was a temple in between that we lived in. And Shivaram Maharaj was Shivaram Prabhu at that point, was sent to start a temple in Winnipeg. And he asked for me and some others to come. So I ended up in Winnipeg pretty well, within a year or a year and a half of joining. So I took my Brahminical initiation in Winnipeg, then started Shivaram Maharaj, taught me how to dress deities. And we were there for quite a period of time. I understand that Guru Charana Padma lived in that area, although she didn't join the temple at that point. But just recently on a podcast with Namras, he was interviewing his family's, his wife's sister and mother. And that's when I understood that because there was a small area in Winnipeg, they decided to start another temple in Minneapolis. So in that procedure, we moved to Chicago waiting for that temple to happen. So that was the first time I saw Radha Krishna deities, Kishore Kishore, Shishi Kishore Kishore, and eventually I was dressing them. In due course of time, we went off to Minneapolis, and it wasn't too long after that I ended up traveling, doing Sankirtan with a party that came through. So after being in Krishna consciousness for quite a period of time, most of us were just going out early in the morning till late at night, and mostly traveling. And there was a lot of austerity, as I mentioned to Lalita Mataji, that our schedules weren't as they were originally under Shivaram's guidance in Winnipeg, where we had regular classes, etc. It was basically a surrender of our life at that point to do whatever we could to establish Prabhupada's mission and temples everywhere. And as far as my husband, I basically, when the temples, when Prabhupada left, it was a very difficult time. Obviously, any time a spiritual master leaves, Shivaram Maharaj told me that it takes decades before the movement becomes strong, because it's quite a challenge for everyone when Srila Prabhupada left. And So I basically had to start to go to work. The temple didn't have facility, and they sold their buildings. They didn't have facility for the devotees. So I went back to school and started working. And in due course of time, I met my husband, and through a place that I was managing, we got married. And basically over time, I met with Mother Chaitanya, and we started going to her center. She invited us to come to India, and my husband and I went to India. Shiva Ram Maharaj told us to come first to visit him, and we went first in 2004 to Hungary, to the farm in Hungary, and my husband and I. And Shiva Ram Maharaj told us that would be better for my husband, who hadn't met with devotees in such large gatherings like in India. So we went to Shiva Ram's beautiful temple, and I got to go on the altar, and he would always station a brahmachari next to my husband. So when they were prasadam time, it was a festival of holy name. It was a holy name festival. They would continually put more prasadam on my husband's plate so that he would become more and more purified, and it was a very powerful trip. And then in the next year we went to India, and that's when my husband got to be taken care of by His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj and introduced to Krishna consciousness in that way. So it was very powerful. And you asked how it is now. How it is now is it's quite a different thing. It's we went through COVID. Everyone went through COVID, and of course these Zoom classes have given us life. So we're just basically trying to get stable, and he does cooking and I do the treasury work, but we're just trying to get to the point where we're settled in the second house, and feeling, the options to be able to hear and read at the level that I'd like to.
It's really so wonderful from your mouth how your journey was. It's really amazing. And I should say one thing, that all these names which you were mentioning, Shivaram Prabhuji and Shyama Sundar Prabhuji, so everything I have heard in Leelamrita or speakers say, but it's really wonderful to hear from the mouth of the disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So because you have been there, you have seen them, you have got your association with them. And now today I feel that the viewers who are seeing this also are really very fortunate to get your association. And Prabhuji, can I ask you one question?
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So Prabhuji, now Mataji has told her journey in Krishna conscious. So when you met Mataji, can you describe where you met her? And you were not in Krishna conscious at that time, right? So how you got inspired to come
Well, it's hard to say. I was going to college at the University of California at Berkeley. I see the devotees all the time because the temple was within several blocks of the university. Honestly, I thought the devotees were crazy and wacko. I thought if you, just like most karmis probably thought, I thought if you were down and out and you needed to, you should join the Hare Krishnas, because then you could have something to do and you could have something to eat, like that. But I never, like I said, I thought they were a little wacko. And as time went on, I found out that I was the one who was a little crazy. And once I started associating with the devotees, I realized how intelligent they were. But still, it's a struggle for me. When I first met my wife, I was doing massage. I've been doing massage for 35 years at least. And somebody that I was massaging, she was a massage therapist who I was trading massages with. She was also massaging my wife. So she started saying, I know
we
this.
worked together.
She worked with her.
I managed a chiropractic clinic, and she was a masseuse for that clinic.
So she would say things about my wife, and she was asking me questions like, you remember some of them, like something.
She wanted to introduce us.
So she did. at that time,
What is it, Mataji's name?
Lalita is her name.
Yeah, my legal name is Lalita. Leona was my name at birth. Leona Rose.
Okay.
And eventually I decided to become a citizen of the United States. And they basically was at the interview with them, and they made me actually explain why I had been in jail. And I said it was for distributing books about God, about Krishna consciousness books.
Oh,
So when I explained that for solicitation, we would go to malls and parking lots. Devotees, most of us got in jail at different points, and they said, okay, well, this name that you go by, Lalita, we have to put that now as your name. So Lalita, and then Leona Rose became my middle name. So Lalita was made my official name when I became a citizen of the United States. So that was Krishna's kindness upon me.
So to continue that little story, when I met my wife, I didn't think she was the one. And she told me she had been searching for my soul for years. I'm thinking, wow, where did you get that? And but she had left the temple kind of and was going to school and learning a trade. And I was thinking, oh, this is okay because she's not a devotee. So eventually I grew closer to her, and we got married. But I wasn't thinking at that time I was marrying a strong devotee from the Hare Krishnas.
So the fact is, we were married, and we wanted to have children, and
when you got married, Mataji, was that when Prabhupada was there, or after that?
no, Prabhupada left in 1977, so that's when I said that all the temple in Berkeley, where I lived at that point,
Yeah, okay.
were sold by Hridayanand, I think, and Rameshwar Maharaj. So there wasn't any housing for devotees anymore. So I went back to school. And so basically at our point in juncture in marriage, we wanted to have a child pretty soon because I wasn't young, and I basically had a car accident. And I rolled down the highway. Flipping. The car was flipping. And I hadn't chanted during the time I was going back to college and studying. I hadn't chanted, but the whole time the car was rolling down the hill, I was screaming, Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya, Krishna Chaitanya. That's all I said until it went off the highway and was upside down. And they pulled me through the windows, and I only got some scratches from the broken glass. And I was on my way to work, actually. It was a Sunday, but I did bookkeeping. I've been a bookkeeper for many, many years, decades. And they pulled me through and took my bag out, and I went, wow, well, Krishna is my Lord in this life. So this was the beginning of the end of our marriage as it was, because at that point is when I had an epiphany where I contacted Shivaram Maharaj in Hungary through his disciples. He asked me to come visit him in Toronto, where his mother lived. He'd be there. And this was a hard time for my husband because he had to deal with that.
She came back from was it New York or Toronto?
No, Toronto.
Toronto, after visiting Shivaram for several days. She came back in the middle of the night. I'm wondering what's going on, what's happening here. And she comes in the house. I knew it was late and she was probably really tired, but I had to ask her a couple of questions. And I don't know exactly the questions I asked her right up front, but I was realizing that she was she was back 100% in Krishna consciousness. And I said, you mean you're never going to watch Oprah Winfrey again? And Shrek means nothing to you? Because she liked that silly movie Shrek, and she used to watch Oprah Winfrey, and she said no. So I was thinking, wow, what are all the ramifications of this? This isn't what I originally bargained for when I got married. Now what should I do? I have a choice to make here. So that's where I was.
Well, I asked him if he would like to chant. So you did agree to chant.
She asked me if I would start chanting. I was chanting at work. after a period of time, she said, well, what do you think?
Well, there's actually
What?
other people asked you. You said it. You felt it.
I thought that my life was less turbulent, like I had less tumult, less issues. And really, honestly, I think 9 out of 10 men would have run the other direction. But I decided to stay. And so I've been struggling ever since now.
No. Then there was an occasion that Jayapataka Maharaj was coming to Berkeley Temple in ISKCON Berkeley, and we went. And we didn't know what he looked like at that point because I had never gone to India. I never met him. Bahushra Prabhu was doing the fire sacrifice. We thought that must be him. But anyway, he came in in due course of time, and his lecture and his association was invaluable and so uplifting. And at the end, I said we could go now. My husband said, no, let's meet him. And he had his stick, and he touched you on his head, his special. And he said, what's your name? And my husband said, Dave. And he said, Dave, that's a spiritual name. Anyway, so on that occasion, he turned to me at one point and said that there's going to be a reunion of the Prabhupada disciples. I think that was 2005. And he asked me to go, and in front of the deities, in Mayapur, and I promised the deities in Berkeley that I would go. So that was the introduction to our spiritual life. Together.
Very well. That's really a very wonderful journey of both of you. It's so sweet to see both of you sharing your memories, like what happened when. And so that's really very nice to hear of you, Prabhuji, that saying about your journey. And I just liked your body language when you were narrating your story. Hare Krishna. So it was approximately on 2005 you started your spiritual journey, both of you together, you're saying, right, Mataji?
Yes, I joined Krishna consciousness in 1974, and then we got married in 1994, right? So we got married in 1994, and so it was a period of time before.
And after that, Prabhuji alone started on 2005, right?
Yes, no. We basically both went to India together because of His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj inviting us to come. But we went to Hungary 2004. You see, when I rolled down the highway, that was the biggest change.
Okay.
That was the biggest change, because then I knew that I had to confront what Krishna had given me after chanting His holy name, and everything started to evolve. Now the real goal in our life, in general, of every sadhaka, is to try to see that Krishna is in charge. So at that point, I felt that Krishna was in charge. And Shivaram directed us, Shivaram Maharaj, and then Jayapataka Maharaj then completely enveloped our life and helped us in so many ways.
Right. When she came back from seeing Shivaram Maharaj, and I was asking her these questions, and then she said, he invited us to go to Hungary with the devotees. I'm thinking, for a couple of weeks, I'm thinking, Hungary with the devotees? 2 weeks? How will I possibly survive? So, and then she, like I said, Shivaram Maharaj had positioned a brahmachari right behind me every time I was eating, and they had cows and they had amazing preparations. And I'd finish something, one prep, think, wow, that was great. And then a hand would come over my shoulder and put some more of that prep on my plate. Anyway, eventually I even attempted to do the dancing with the devotees, and before we left Hungary.
So as Prabhupada says that for the spiritual journey to start, like we have to feed the belly. It's like that.
She would make me halva every day with different fruits.
Yeah, I made him halva on a smoothie and fruit salad for 3 years. 3 years. And,
oh my God.
I'm a slow learner.
Yeah. So,
I just want to ask you, like you were saying that Prabhuji took a long time for him to come into Krishna consciousness, because you were the senior as far as Krishna consciousness is concerned. In 1974, you got initiation, right?
Yes.
Or you can, Okay. And your second initiation was on?
I think a year later in Winnipeg. So I joined
Okay. So
February.
both you got from Prabhupada itself.
Yes, well, it was Prabhupada wasn't present in either. Shripati was the temple president in Montreal. He did the ceremony. Prabhupada sent the letter through the GBC. Jagadish was our representative in Canada at that point. And then in Winnipeg, the other letter accepting me for my second initiation came. So yeah, so that was basically 1974. I joined 1975. I got my second, and then and I just
so there goes my question, Mataji. So you got your initiation far before than Prabhuji. So when you met Prabhuji, then you got married. So what were the phases you struggled to make Prabhuji to come into Krishna consciousness? Did you struggle more, or how was your travel with Prabhuji? Because he was then a non-devotee, as you said, right? So how it is, because I'm asking this because on behalf of, there are many Matajis who are also suffering now, right? As neophytes, they have come into Krishna consciousness, and they are Prabhujis, they are not in Krishna consciousness, and there are so many going on, right, in the families. So I just want you to reply on behalf of them all, like how they can overcome.
Well, my desire was certainly influenced by that accident that happened eventually. But at the beginning of our relationship, I was trying to just be a vegetarian in a marital situation and tried to live peacefully. However, without Krishna consciousness at the forefront, you're in the modes of material nature. And so there's no way that you can actually cultivate what each and every one of us is looking for. Just like the prayers to Lord Chaitanya, that we're always anxious for the nectar. And that doesn't come unless you're spiritually situated. So there was struggles. And then I basically did try my best after that point in time to always feed prasadam. And to me, there's nothing more powerful than prasadam. And halava is like an unbelievable preparation that has made untold limit, no limit to the amount of devotees that have made by halava. So that was my strategy. And I just prayed to Krishna. And the fact is that I just heard recently, Amarinja, one of those little short things that are online. He said, so if you're married to someone and they're favorable to Krishna consciousness, and this is very good. I says, if you're married to someone and they're not favorable to Krishna consciousness, then you can become a pure devotee. And I understood that because basically you have to go within and realize that we're individual jivas, just like when people have their babies and their children, they're individual souls. They have their development to come to, and in due course of time, they'll have to make their own decision. So similarly, the soul has an individual choice to make at every moment. And certainly in this day and age, everyone is confronted by the media, social media, and they have to continually try not to get distracted. I have to say that being a devotee that joined in my teens, and there was nothing, no one had phones, no one had computers, no one had tablets. We only had Prabhupada's instructions, and we had our sleeping bag on the floor, we rolled it up, we washed the floor, and we began our service each and every day through the end of the day. It wasn't like there was any distractions. This is a whole different life now, where we're not only getting our Krishna consciousness, but we're also being tested when we're interacting with our computers and our phones, unwanted, association. So the fact is that we really have to have good association in order to make advancement in spiritual life. And it's not the easiest thing for everyone in this world being, confined in in their house without it becoming a temple. So our temple is our home, and we try our best to take care of my deities and engage in always, regulated, waking and putting them to sleep and making an offering and offering water, flower vases, just to try to always connect to Krishna. And then pray that our rounds, our chanting of the holy name will become more and more potent by hearing each and every syllable. It takes me longer now to chant than years ago, because now I really realize I have to really be present. I can't just rattle. I have to be present. I have to say Rama. I have, especially because my husband wants to hear the and hooray. I want to know, like Chandramani Maharaj said, if you really try to hear hooray, each mantra, then your consciousness becomes more and more purified, and your tolerance level increases, because I don't know any marital couples that don't have strife. It just happens. It's just the nature of even in Krishna consciousness. And it's the decision within the heart of how Krishna conscious we want to be. And so I can only praise this forum over and over and over again for the association I've got, because when I'm listening to Bhagavatam class, I feel the heart being altered by these different pure souls. And I'm ever grateful, because although I may not be able to go back home this life, we had so many challenges after Prabhupada left. The initial devotees did too. It was hard for them to be one-on-one with Prabhupada, and then all of a sudden it was like tumultuous amount of people were joining, and then they didn't have that one-on-one anymore. So they went through their struggles, and we went through our struggles because we didn't have everything in place like Prabhupada had wanted it. It was kind of anything and everything we could do to preach. And so many devotees left right after Mangalarti. I would go to part of Mangalarti, and then we were in the book room or getting paraphernalia or whatever. My point is that to become Krishna conscious, to me, association with pure devotees and those who aspire to be pure devotees is the utmost benediction and reward. And that's what the Bhakti Sangha group has done for me and my husband. And although there are still anarthas within our hearts and issues that, everyone has the different baggage they come into their life with that they have to address one point or another. I was forced to when I rolled down the highway in a car accident. And so you start to take things in a different level, and aging is extraordinarily beneficial because you start to understand every time you see your face in the mirror that, oh, this isn't me. It's just time ticking. I'm going to be out of here. So how can I remember you? And even when there's times when you're not having, it's not peaceful. And sometimes you feel an anxiety and you're feeling overwhelmed. I have to say, I may have those times even a couple of days ago, because in behind my couch here is all the files that I'm trying to deal with, because I do bookkeeping for different people, and I'm trying to finish up the last aspects, and it just won't end. And I just feel like I want to get to my Krishna consciousness. But when I had like a little meltdown, and then I realized, I said, Krishna, I'm sorry, you give me everything I need. Just please forgive me. You start to realize that really you have to understand that you're not going to be able to leave Krishna. Krishna will keep on pulling you towards him. And so why not try to keep that as the center? And even on WhatsApp that came a day ago from my close friend in California, she had a lecture, a piece of a lecture from Prabhupada explaining that we're in the ocean and you're going to be tossed and turned. You're in the ocean, but the goal is to get out, because you cannot fight the ocean. So that's what we have to come to realize through your association, through the association of these wonderful devotees.
Haribol. Thank you so much, Mataji. So, Prabhuji, I want to hear from you, like, how was that your experience? Mataji must have been doing Mangalarati at those days, right? So before you were into Krishna consciousness. So how was your experience then? Like, what was your feeling? What is the feeling at that time? Because Mataji must have got up very early for Mangalarati and doing her japa. And
Yeah, I really wasn't sure what this was all about. Like some of my acquaintances would say, I would say, we offer our food. They go, what does that mean? And then my answer was, that means when I eat, the food is cold. So I explained that, you put a portion of every prep on the Lord's plates and then offer it to him and then let it. So that's what my answer was. So I wasn't sure what was going on. When we went to Mayapur, I was supposed to meet my Guru Maharaj I was supposed to meet Jayapataka Swami one morning, and I missed that appointment, and I met him the next day. And I said to him, Maharaj, if I was given the chance to come back again in my next lifetime to this material world or stay in the spiritual world, I would choose to come back to the material world so I could do whatever I could to help heal the world. And he looked at my wife and Mother Chaitanya and smiled and laughed and said, we need to we need to teach these new devotees, what it's all about. And so anyway, I listened to him a little bit, but still was like not sure what was going on. Then I started going on the morning walks with him, with several devotees. I went on one of the morning walks, and he stopped in front of the Goshala and sat down, and he put a chair next to him. And he said, "You come and sit next to me." And all the devotees were around. And then one of his servants brought a couple clay mugs and poured something in the clay mugs and gave me one and gave Maharaj one. And Maharaj started drinking it. So I started drinking it, and I was thinking, I'm like drinking it, and I'm looking around me, thinking, I smell like urine. Like where is this coming from? And I'm drinking it, and so I was drinking the cow urine, and
What did you say? He said you're brave.
I figured, hey, if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for me. So then the next day, the same thing. I was thinking to myself, my wife is gonna really gonna get a kick out of this. And so anyway, the next day, the same thing happened. And then he said something to me, Maharaj said something like, so what is your realization for today? And I'm thinking, what does that mean? Like, I had no idea what to say. And I'm sure I mumbled something, and we continued on with the walk. But then the next day, the same thing happened again. Through the next 24 hours, I was thinking, what does that mean? What is my realization? So I kind of came up with an answer to that question. It just so happened the next day, the same thing happened. He asked me the same question in front of everybody. And I said something to the effect that I really was appreciating being around all the devotees. And, I can't remember what I said, but I had a decent answer. And maybe he was surprised. So this whole journey kept going on for longer. 2 years later, we were in Mayapur again together. And Guru Maharaj says to me, "Oh, I hear you're going on the safari." And I'm thinking, what's a safari? What is a safari? And so every year he takes the devotees on a safari somewhere, a spiritual journey to many temples, and there's all kinds of Pandal programs. And
so he convinced
so he asked me, I'm thinking, so I understood. Now I know what the safari is, but I had no plans on going on the safari. In the meantime, he asked me the same question the next day, and the same. So for 3 times he said, "You're going on the safari." I realized, I guess I am going on the safari. My wife left India, and all of a sudden I'm going on the safari with 200 devotees from 40 different countries or so. And this is the first time I was ever with the devotees without my wife. So trying to make a long story short, obviously I had to completely surrender on this safari. We were on trains and buses. I'm with people I don't know. I completely surrendered, and I had the most amazing time of my life. I completely forgot about everything else except the safari.
Now, I
So
would like to,
nice.
I just want to interject. When Maharaj asked me to go in the safari, I said, no, I have to go back to work because I was an administrator in a company for 12 years before we came. And Kim and I went back together. We flew together and did everything. So just a few days ago, we got a call from Mother Chaitanya that His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj initiated our Kim. And now her name, if I understand, is Krishna Sevani Gaurangi Devi Dasi. And that was after 20 years. We brought her to India with us. So that was so uplifting. And I just want to interject that I was trained in doing book distribution, and I took up to doing the book distribution early on. And my husband wasn't in that stage whatsoever. He would be listening to sports but he would set up the table. We would do the flea market in different places in Berkeley. And we had the books, and he'd set it up, and then he would just sort of stand there and listen, and I would distribute. And at the end of the day, I'd have $130 or something. 130? How did you do that? He was kind of amazed at it. So in due course, he started taking those earplugs out, and he would show them a cookbook, or he'd show them something. And in due course of time, he beat me. He started to beat me. In fact, once I remember, what was it? He did the most, Ratha Yatra. He did $700 and I did 90. So he took to this process of the books. We needed to retire to be able to read the books. The fact is when you're managing a company and you have to leave early in the morning, that sadhana, you don't have much at all. But now we have the opportunity to change that. And again, it started 2019 with us, our moving here and being introduced by Abhiram Saka to this park.
Haribol. So nice, so sweet of you both sharing your memories. It's really very nice, Prabhuji and Mataji. And one last question is like, how do you do your sadhana from morning to night? What are the various services, and how can you handle your sadhana in midst of your services or work, anything?
Well, for me, one day I was listening to one of the classes here. I think one of the doctors said he woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning and chanted all his rounds, and then he took a nap, something like that fit his schedule. So I decided to start doing that. So I wake up very early in the morning and chant my rounds. I also do a lot of cooking for the temple, the deities and the devotees. And
he does the cooking different than when we were young devotees in the temple and they told us to cook. We run in the kitchen and try to find something. He's just put it together quick. He takes most of the week before to figure out what he's going to make, and he buys all the ingredients and he wants to serve the devotees. So it's a real a testament to his desire to please the Vaishnavas, which is really a key to spiritual life. As far as my then we always, of course, I turn this on the second I'm up so that I see you, but I chant with Jayapataka Maharaj's tape of him chanting japa in our sunroom where we have Tulsi. And then once it's 7 o'clock, then my husband reappears, and then we're here through the end of the Bhagavatam class every day. So myself, I've been under a lot of work stress because of the taxes I have to deal with, corporations and different things that I still do, but I'm almost backing out of most of them. I gave up my longest 17-year client at the end of last year, but I still did work in 2022. I mean, the end of 21. But my point is that it's been a little rough because I haven't really come to the point where I have the steadiness I want. I usually wake up around 4, somewhere around that. And just start the process of getting ready, but it's very different when you're not 19. It's not the same thing. You can't just rush from one thing to the next. But then I chant my rounds. I try to do all my rounds in the morning and do Bhagavatam class. We've been reading since Vaisheshika Prabhu started, what did he call it? Chat. It's called chapter a day, chat. We've been reading one chapter Bhagavad Gita. We read all of the verses in Sanskrit and English, and then one purport every day. We've been doing it about 9 years. And then I promised, I was given a gift for my birthday from Indulek Devi Das, who lived with us for 3 years, and it was the Nishinga Kavachas. So I do the Kavachas every day, and I have printed out all the devotees that I'm praying for. So I first do it for my husband because he needs help, because he joined Krishna consciousness later in life, and it's very different than when you start early in life. Very different. And so I do one for him completely, and then I list all the devotees, and I do prayers, the whole thing again for all of the devotees, and pray for them. And then I do the Shikshastika and the prayers to the 6 Goswamis without fail. So these are my the Gita, the Shikshastika, the Goswami prayers, and the Nishinga Kavacha. I will not go to bed without doing it. And it has such potency. And of course, what's his name? One that always says the main point is Keshavananda. I sort of had a little bit of a challenging situation when he said that we shouldn't be doing the Kavacha because this is such a forefront of my consciousness. But he made it clear that it shouldn't be done for ourselves. So now when I'm doing I go, oh yeah, for them, please bless them. And I take myself out of the equation, but I still do it every single day. And I have to say, when I was in India, I was very sick. That last time, 2014, we took Bahushara's 2 daughters, and I was quite sick. I couldn't get better. And I really wanted to stay to be with Lord Nishingadev during the arti. But all the gentlemen, the devotees, they wanted me to get away. Mataji, get away, get away. And I couldn't move. I just couldn't move. And the Pujari, he told me to come up closer, almost like, because they didn't have a door to the Nishinga. In the new temple, they will have a door, but right, they only can go in through the front. He told me, come up closer, you can stay here. And that kind of changed my life, in the sense that Lord Nishinga, they allowed that for me, and I got to stay there right in front of him for the whole arti. And when I was there during that time, I was sick. Every time I would go around Lord Nishingadev, the door would accidentally open and I'd see him. And when Mataji said, I'm going to stick with you, she said, every time I see you go next and the door opens. So I have to say, I turned to my husband that day after Keshavananda's class, and I was kind of shaking because it means so much to me to pray to Lord Nishingadev. I said, I think I'm really attached to Lord Nishingadev. And he acknowledged it. So I just wanted to say deity worship is very helpful in householder life. And Lord Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati said it's essential. It's essential because that's who you get to talk to every day and offer petals to, and just to be conscious that this isn't my home. This is your home.
I'd like to add that now I've met many devotees and Maharajas, and they're just amazing. I mean, the devotees are just so intelligent. They can do anything. I'm just overwhelmed. But I think my wife is the most amazing of all devotees. And so I decided that the best thing I could do, even though I don't do it well, is to try to serve my wife. She's a Prabhupada disciple. So that's what I do. And like I said, not well, but, to my dying breath, I'll take care of her and protect her, as best I can.
Haribo. So thank you so much. This is really a very wonderful interview and such a nice, wonderful journey you both shared, Prabhuji and Mataji. I'm really, no words actually I can say. So it's very nice to hear from you both. So dear devotees, So I think you also will be benefited by seeing this interview from these two pure devotees. They are really very, I don't have any words for them, but still I can say that they are really very sincere, and we have a lots to learn from them. So thank you so much, Prabhuji and Mataji. My humble obeisances to you, and keep giving us your association as every day. Hare Krishna. I
Hare
like
Krishna.
this folded hands, Mataji and Prabhuji. So every time when you come after the class, you just say Hare Krishna to the speakers, whoever is there. It's really so nice to see both. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you very much. Hare Krishna.
So, Preeti will ask